Natty Tax Happy Hour. Dig.
Goddamn gumbo. Like, I'm late because I spilled gumbo all over my phone and my earbuds and the counter. Like, I was living. What's the fantasy? What's the one dream? Today was the first day I was going to experience.
You're sitting at a bar,
yes,
and eating food that is brought to you.
Yes.
And you went to that seafood place right around the corner
Yes.
from you, and
Yes.
you got the gumbo because you know
yes,
that time is an issue, so you don't want to deal with anything that's in the kitchen.
yes,
You know they got a simmering pot.
yes,
So they bring you, I'm gonna guess, a cup
yes,
of gumbo,
yes.
and you are either in the transit you spill it, or while you have it in front of you, you either get a call or see something and there's an awkward move. You dump the gumbo all over your phone, and now you are in a living hell.
Man, you are 80% there. You were 90% there. Look, it's far from a living hell. I mean, talk about hashtag privilege. I mean, complaining that expensive gumbo spilled on your iPhone 11.
Brian, live your truth. Live your truth. You're allowed to live your truth.
No, you're 100% right on everything except for what happened was it was the last couple of sips, and I was in that kind of, hey man, I got to hurry up because happy hour. And then I went to pick it up. Like you get to the end of the bowl, you're going to lift up the bowl, hold it in your hand, and kind of just get that perfect. You ever get that perfect scoop where it's like the side of the spoon
overflowing, and
or like the side of the spoon exactly lines up with the curvature of the bowl, and you're just like, that's called hashtag value, my friends. And I was in the middle of doing that, and it slipped out of my hands and clanged and exploded. And of course, I have earbuds in, so listening to my audiobook. So way too loud, I just go like, Jesus Christ. And then realizing that now all of the 4 people in the entire building are now looking at me. I'm just like, so again, I have no audio feedback. I just know that I was entirely too loud and everyone heard that. So I just say, doggone it, tried to get that last bit of gumbo.
I would have went with is the Lord our Savior, and you all need to hear His word, for it is the light and the truth.
I think I would do that if I was able to regulate the volume of my voice to know how loud I was.
Also, like, you have 5 places that you like to go. Right?
Look, I am a creature of habit nowadays.
Exactly.
I don't know how this happened to me.
You were a creature of habit before.
But my habit was to be in a different city every single day, so nobody had the chance to put together.
I mean, Studio Brian.
Oh, sure,
Brian.
Yeah,
exactly. Studio-centric Brian.
Yeah.
Like many people, I don't think that this is in any way strange, but you got the things that you like. You got the chicken wings you like. You got the coffee you like. You got the seafood you like. Whatever, right? And so this is. I don't know what it would take. How funny the joke would have to be for you to burn that seafood restaurant for a bit.
Now, here's the thing.
That would have to be a joke that you could tell in any crowd, and it would always be fall down hilarious.
I mean, that's
Bonnie
the
likes
thing.
that place too. So that would be sacrificing a lot.
Back in the old days when I was a stone skipping across America, like burning a place didn't matter because I was in a different town. They could forever tell legends of the spiky-haired weirdo who came in and sang Mr. Roboto at full volume standing on a bar stool in the middle of the Applebee's, whatever. But it's like in a world where it's me and Bonnie, as we found out last week when I tried to get something notarized. Like
word travels.
We
Word
have a
travels
persistent
in the outskirts of
reputation,
Hill Country,
right?
Holy shit! All right, so you spilled it, and then you exclaimed,
and then I cleaned up.
I'm gonna make it better by explaining why I exclaimed.
To my credit, I kept that to a minimum, and the guy just brought over like 4 bar napkins. It was like, is that gonna be enough? And I'm like, and what I thought but did not say is, for me to pretend like you're not the one who's going to clean this, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
4 bar napkins is exactly enough to wipe my phone, wipe my earbuds, and piece the fuck out of the place.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why we were 2 minutes late today. How are you doing, man?
Good. Getting the week going. Crunch time. 8 days.
Yeah, this is really
the
it,
election, man. And yeah, we're ready to rock and roll.
It's I suppose I'm starting to think how can I put this? You know how sometimes you'll tell yourself the same thing over and over and over again, but you could tell deep down you don't really believe it because your habits don't change, right?
Yeah.
And for example, there might be a TV project and I'll tell myself, hey, who knows, maybe this TV thing will turn into something. But then I'll notice like weeks into it that I'm like, yeah, you don't believe this is going to happen. What? No, I totally believe. Look at me. I'm turning in all the papers or whatever. But then my dialogue with myself is, yeah, you're still fat and you know you're fat and I ain't seen you get in shape. And if you really believe this is going to go somewhere, you'd be getting in shape. And then meanwhile, there's other TV projects where it's like, I could tell that there's a smell of maybe on this and I'll see myself make those little corrections and all that. So I discovered over the weekend that I believe we're getting back to business here at HQ. And the only reason, like, even though I've been telling myself that, like, the thing I've been telling myself is, hey, we're working it out, production bubbles, we're doing this, we're doing that, and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, meanwhile, as you and I have talked about, stuff in my face, getting fat, drinking too much, blah, 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 blah. But I could tell I really believed we're about to get back to work because this whole weekend I started cleaning HQ. And I started cursing the names of everybody who left a pen in the wrong place. And I realized, like, why am I obsessed with this? And I'm like, because I believe it's coming back.
Yeah, man. And it's funny. We talked while you were in the middle of it, which is funny because we were talking about, I was calling you for something else that you had literally like just sent me a text message on. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, let's get into this other thing. And you were like, God damn it, half eaten sandwich and and I'm like, what does that have to do with this other thing that we were talking about? And you're just like, no, I know we're gonna get into this thing. I'm just saying that, like, you should put the ketchup in the back of the fridge because I'm trying to present a good refrigerator. And I'm like, what do you mean a good refrigerator? Like, so yeah, I was just dropped in sans context to Brian cleaning the studio.
Now you have context, which is, I think that, I was thinking about this, like, especially, we have to do the dance of what's appropriate to talk about on the After Things podcast, where we open up the kimono a bit about, how the business really works and stuff. And hopefully our sincerity is rewarded. But I realized, like, hey, man, we're coming up on holiday season, which is always the biggest deal for our business and so on. And I realized that 1 year ago, I mean, we didn't talk about this, but we full on. So 3 years ago, when everything was running out of my bedroom and a small 900 square foot rented warehouse, turns out you could save a lot of money that way. A really good way to, and then, eventually when the pile gets big enough, you think, oh, I must have money. And then you spend it and then you don't realize, how much it costs to do a fixer upper of a cult compound, a nudist colony. And then like 1 year ago, we full on ran out of money and I had to go to a loan shark. By the way, that loan shark is PayPal. Fuck you, PayPal. And so we, which, doesn't matter. But the point is we ran all the way.
Yeah. Business flow stuff. So like,
we'd never run into the red. We'd never full on had to take out a loan just to make payroll. Right.
Yeah. And you were at a point, much like now, where if you have overspent, now is like when you run out of money because you are about to get a full, like, sizable percentage of the year's sales in about 2 months.
Yeah.
But boy, no matter how many times that you know for a fact that it's always rainy season, man, are you watching those clouds to measure each and every drop
And
when you absolutely need rain?
And this year there's these dueling impulses, because on the one hand, like I look at where we were a year ago, and we basically we went into lockdown financially and kind of stasis and stuff to along with the world. But a year ago, I know exactly how rough it got. And this year, it looks like we won't dip into the red, which is exciting. It'll be tight, right? But
Yeah.
I also don't know how the weather is going to be. I don't know, like, if it's ever going to be a year to surprisingly not rain. This seems like it might be it, right?
Well, and look, anybody who's in your business has to have that kind of, like, you have to be realistic. You have to know basically what could happen, basically what should happen, and then hope that there's not a lack of money that instead comes in the form of a valuable lesson that you wish you had applied around this time, right? And I would say for you, the good sign is that this could be a bumper crap. Expectations for online sales are higher this year than they have been in the past. Now, who knows how much of that will come to online retailers like yourself, or will be taken up by traditionally physical retailers that are now just going to sell to those kind of customers online. But still, there's a lot of unknown for people that are in your position right now.
Yeah. And there's also, so there's sort of the world writ large in terms of the economy and whether or not people are more scared or excited about the future, whether or not they're optimistic and enough to spend money going into the holiday season. But then there's also the ebb and flow of your personal reach, which, as we talked about in After Things, that's part of the reason that I want so much for us to be more than just the Brian Brushwood Show, is so that we know that when it comes time for us to remind people that, hey, if you're searching for a gift, we have some pretty cool stuff on this online store. You know, there have been in different years, we've had different levels of being able to let people know that, I guess, would be kind of the general worry. But at any rate, all of which is to say that it's once I started cleaning and fussing that I realized, I think in my heart of hearts, I really think that we're, at least at HQ, going to be able to get back to after a 1-year pause button, get back to the making everything complete. We still don't have a floor. Like, it's still concrete on the floor.
Yeah. Well, and also it's like, there still is an element of like announcing your plans out loud is the fastest way to make God laugh in 2020, right? Like, because, we're going through another national spike of this stuff. We have no idea how bad it is going to be in terms of, this spike as opposed to the summer spike, as opposed to the one in the spring. The hope is that we're better at not letting people die. The hope is that some of the strains are more like the one that you went through and less like the ones that require people to, go to the hospital. But again, like, if there's one thing that the motto on 2020 should just be hold on loosely. Like, whatever it is, like whatever expectation you have in life, whatever you think you are able to do, just be prepared. Follow your own credo and hope for the best, because that's where we're at, and I don't blame you for channeling a lot of that into, like, you want to know what? Push comes to shove, the goddamn kitchen's going to be clean. Like, whether or not people are coming back to work tomorrow or they're coming back to work in 6 months, there ain't nobody going to have a dirty ass kitchen, because the second everybody is able to come back, it's going to be gleaming and everyone's going to know to put their half-eaten fucking ketchup in the back of the fridge instead of the front, because it's made to look like a vending machine.
Yes, exactly.
Jesus.
God damn. At least one person in this world understands my
I'm just
pain.
saying. You want to look? I'm very much a believer in that, though. Like, I do think that there are element, man, this might get a little hippy dippy, but like there are elements of your life that are made better by not looking at a mess. Like that there is a visual, if we are all pattern recognizing creatures and all we are literally just a computer that either emotionally or physically, like if we just see a jumble of things, our brain is at the very least expending resources to think about how we could unjumble that jumble, right? And so if you are at hyper efficiency, then having a personal space for which is clean and tidy is just saving your brain power for other things that then you can pattern recognize and try to and try to figure out. So I'm totally with you on that.
One of the things I did, and what's funny is when you've decided that now is not the time to create, then what do you care how messy everything is? But one of the things I did in that cleanup was I wiped down the board. Like I grabbed all the note cards that I had written and I knew I'd taken pictures of everything. So if there's anything I need to access, it's all there. So meanwhile, let me wipe down the whiteboard and I just wrote down really tiny in the middle, like if we're to create, let's at least give ourselves the courtesy of an awesome blank canvas. You know, it's like that empty space. There's so much value. And I look around at stuff and what I'm really dialed in on is pretty much anything that sits anywhere, it maybe gets used once every, let's say 4 months or whatever, but it's occupying that space 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's like, does it belong there? Like I've gotten to a place where it's like, I value empty space so much that all of a sudden the idea of rebuying what if I just had to pay $1.50 every time I ever wanted salt, and I had to buy another salt shaker every single time I ever wanted salt,
and every time you use 3 shakes of the salt,
then
and then
threw that fucker away,
toss it out.
Right, exactly. Like that's like that in a world where, like in your home, that would be an insane thing to do. But in a production space, the mathematics sort of change. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, the more clutter you have, the less you're able to do. The more things, the more projects you have to say, well, we don't have room for that, or we can't possibly accomplish X, Y, and Z. And instead you realize, like, even though it's quote unquote not being used, the ability to have 1,500 square feet of open space versus 700 square feet of open space is the difference between we can do this episode or we can't do this episode.
Yeah. I mean, I'm totally like, I am on your side. Like there are things in my life where I realize that, like, I'm looking now at like my gigantic mess of wires here.
What's funny
like,
is as I said this, I looked over and I was just like, God damn, all these wires there. Look at how much better that is. Look at how much, look at how much more pro.
And it's like, I know that those wires are an expression of the fact that I only know enough of my system to, if it is working, to keep away from it. And that my worry about cleaning up all the wires is that, oh, well, what if I just need to unplug one thing and it's going to be a pain in the ass because I have them all tied up in bundles and stuff like that. And like, that would be frustrating. But that isn't really anything other than me saying, oh, I feel inadequate for not understanding my equipment. There's
also a permanence to, for example, cable tying down your cables or whatever. It's like, do I really feel so confident in the way everything's set up that I want to decide that this is capital T, capital W the way, you know? And it's like, no. Also, in the chat, JDS3K is saying, like, I don't know that a salt shaker is going to make that big a difference. Motherfucker, this is how it happens. Everybody thinks that about everything. Next thing you know, you've lost your whole fucking soundstage and you watch the stage flats creep forward bit by bit. And what was 2,000 beautiful square feet of openness is suddenly 400 square feet. You might as well be back in your spare bedroom for all the fucking space you have, because everybody has salt shakers as far as the eye can see. That's a theoretical idea. It's not about anything specific. No. Certainly not about me and my situation.
No. No.
It's
And
a
I'm
slippery
shocked.
salt.
I was gonna say I'm shocked that you even check swung on getting more into detail on the state of floor space in your studio. Uh, but yeah, I'm man. I am with you. We are simpatico
But
on the idea.
well, and again, just to bring it back full swing, and then we can move on to something else. But it's like the mere fact that I even notice and care about this stuff at a very core level seems to be a message of optimism and hope. That it's like, oh man, like the only reason I would even notice this is because I'm already at the very subconscious level thinking about the next group of people to come in as guests, to shoot episodes and so on.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe that's it. I would say also give yourself the respect of saying, no, I am master of my domain. And if you have learned one thing throughout all of this is that you are the leader, you set the tone. If you are like, salt shakers, who cares if there's salt shakers all over the place? Then guess what there's going to be? Salt shakers all over the place. If you hold the line and say a blank canvas is a blank canvas and we owe it to ourselves to have a blank canvas, then that is you, as far as the 7 acre Schwood is concerned, the Lord our God laying down the law for those to follow. I think that you should honor yourself.
Well, and that road is a little bit scary for me to tread down, knowing that I spent so much of this year checked out, and like then all of a sudden it's like I feel like I don't get to play the righteous.
A wise man once told me that the best time to plant a tree was 18 years ago, and the second best time is right now.
Yeah,
So
fair enough.
You can't. But that man was Schwood. So it's like, if you need to follow your own example and be like, yeah, so whatever. Everybody. The point isn't that you never check out. Like the point isn't that, oh shit, Brian, what you're telling me that you were mentally affected by a fucking pandemic that not only shut down your entire personal life and your comings and goings, but also your families, and also threw your business into constant peril, and then also put you on a razor's edge of having to think about everybody coming and going that was still working at your place. And then the worst happened and you were the one that got the disease that you had made all these protocols for. Holy shit. What a piece of fucking shit you are. Wow. How would you be so weak to have that happen to you? Or it's like,
and then
of course.
This motherfucker, all that comes in and fusses to me about my salt shakers.
I know. No, you like, I think there are going to be a lot of really, 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 really good lessons that people take out of this situation in terms of self-control and self-respect and self-determination. Because
it is almost like everybody was forced to spend a year-long sabbatical where they were locked in a room with themselves and their family and the life they'd made for themselves. And obviously it's a spectrum and various people had various instances, but there are big parts that we can all point to that are really, really bad and rough about this past year. But I think there's significant and transformative self-growth that I'm still in the process of experiencing. And it sounds like you are as well.
Oh God. I mean, I'm a different person, and I don't think that that's something that I would have seen coming if this were just a year. If this were just a year, I think I would have hoped to have the podcast, the PX3 podcast, at about the place that I am now, or at least I would have hoped that I did, right? But in terms of having the kind of goals and follow through and being kind of on top of and accountable to myself in terms of my own project management, like facing down things that were like larger problems that now, once you've cleared the deck on daily distractions or even intermediate distractions of like, now there's not, I mean, hell, Ash and I were supposed to go to Amsterdam and then Germany. And we were supposed to, I'm sure we probably would have went to either Florida or Ohio for Christmas, or at some point before. I would have went to Vegas at least twice, of things that were actually like on the books for me to do. I would have gone to Pennsylvania and Michigan. I'd probably be on the road right now. None of that shit happened. And so now it's like, well, fuck. Like when I realized that I wasn't going to be traveling anymore, I built this back set. When I realized I wasn't going to be traveling anymore, I stepped up the online stuff. We bought a car. There's a lot of like just like life shit that I didn't have a choice but to look at. And when I don't think of it as being checked out, despite the fact that, and we've had conversations about how, the what we would traditionally consider ourselves at optimum, we were far away from. But I consider it now when I look back on it, I think part of it was looking at all that, looking at all these things that I have to, that were low key making me sad because I wasn't I wasn't executing. And initially my response was, well, let's head to the Winchester and wait for all this to blow over. And so, it was just like a spring break that turned into a winter break, that turned into a semester at sea, that turned into a year off. And I was like, and at about the 4-month mark, I was like, all right, I got to do something. Something's gotta happen to get going. And then brick by brick, I realized that like, hey, these problems that I was facing down, they're all tackleable one thing by one thing by one thing by one thing by one thing. And it's a lot easier to get to when you don't have any distractions. Like, and that's something where it's like, now that I realized, oh, like that's what that is. That's what progress is. Progress isn't some epiphany. Progress isn't some, crazy moment where I'm struck by lightning and I electrify like Goofy in a Disney cartoon and now I speak with a British accent and I'm better at everything. Like, no, it's just fucking looking at, well, where was I last week and where am I going to be this week and what are my goals for the next 4 weeks? Like, holy shit, that's easy. And then all of a sudden it becomes easy and it becomes something that is just normal. And I suspect that I'm not totally crazy for having a revelation like that during this year. And I don't think that it's for everybody or everybody walks a different path or has different levels to them. But I know for me that 100% is the case.
Yeah. So, which brings me kind of back around to the proximate cause for some of the introspection was, gearing up for the big holiday season. And I was thinking about how, like, look, going into the holiday season with the merch stuff and, shooting a bunch of stuff and trying to figure out, playing this weird video game of trying to guess what people are really going to want and trying to get it or whatever. Like at the end of the day, for all the hard work and being stuck in the maelstrom, there's at least a tangible in the moment of you've done this well, make a corrective action or not. Whereas, like you are right now at the height of the maelstrom, and yet there's forgive me if I'm interpreting this wrong, but I'm fascinated by what it's like to be in just as big of a maelstrom, but to have the data points not so much be number of sales or whatever, because there's a disconnect between the patronage, and you've seen patronage go up as we've gotten in this general time, but it's sort of like it's a bit like course correcting on a cruise ship. It's like, if you could start being really, really bad at your politicking right now, and it would be days, weeks, maybe months till you really saw that reflected in a reduction of patronage or whatever. Like, what is it like to be at the heart of that maelstrom? Number one, not knowing, in theory, it's supposed to be blue skies the day after election day, but but also not knowing if there's ever going to be an end in sight to the storm, but also knowing that there's where you're at and the service you're performing, and that it is definitely attached, but temporally displaced from when you're going to see the effects of whether you're doing it well or not.
I think to a certain extent, I've made the progress that I needed to make this year. We doubled our patrons. We've identified more of an audience, a general audience. I've been thrilled to watch having Heaton here has been a huge help. Not only in terms of making all of our content better, but also watching his stuff explode. I mean, since he's been here, has basically gained a third of what his previous
he made an
Patreon
announcement
was.
of getting ready to almost hit 500, and you could tell that he wasn't entirely sure he could cross that threshold within a week's time. And then the next time I hear anything about it, it's about 7 days later, and I'm hearing about over 600. What's he at now?
He just passed 600 over the weekend.
Wow.
And it's like we were walking around on Friday, and he's like, I think I'm gonna hit 600 sometime before the election. And I'm like, motherfucker, you're gonna hit 600 sometime before this weekend,
before this conversation is over.
Yeah, exactly.
Did I mention I'm actually 400 other people?
Yeah, but so I'm not worried about the money. I'm fascinated to see what the dip will be, because I do suspect there will be a dip, at least in money, because I know some people have bumped up their stuff to like the $50 an episode level or something like that, like where it's like they want their name in the front of the podcast for the big podcast. And it's so I will see a dip in money for sure. I suspect I'll see a dip in patrons, at least in a short-term level, between either beginning of November or end of November. But what I'm mostly excited about is that, as far as a story, no matter whether or not we know who the president is the day after Election Day, we're going to fundamentally cross a line where before, this is a prognosticator's game, right? And after, it's a news story. Because, before, even now, we're so far deep into backcountry that we can't even agree on what the news stories are. Like when one side is screaming, Trump had a secret Chinese bank account, and the other side saying it wasn't secret. What are you talking? Like, yes, he was a businessman who had a Chinese bank account, and then that same side is saying the real story is Hunter Biden's laptop, and the other people are saying none of that's been proven, and we can't even agree on what news is. Then we're all just playing prognosticator. We're all just playing analyst. The real story is, will this affect anything? Past Election Day, once we have numbers, now it's a news story. And it's a news story about, we're not going to be wondering about, I don't know, should the Biden campaign put lawyers in Pennsylvania to help them count the vote because the Trump campaign is? It'll be like, yes, that's what's going to happen. And so we will cover that. But I feel way more comfortable covering a news story. I'd go 30 days of mega 2000 Florida. And at the very least, all the facts will be, whether you like them or not, kind of indisputable. They're counting these ballots. They counted these ballots yesterday. They're counting these ballots today. They expect to have it done by this time. People are yelling, blah, blah. You just accurately quote them, and we're going to move on. But that, I'm excited to move into that phase, because right now, boy, for an audience that doesn't really yell at me much, man, is this audience yelling at me. Boy, are we into...
For the first time, it's feeling like, for a spaceship that was built to be mine-proof, feels like some mines are going off all around you.
Well, it's like, look, this is... All I know is I've always had a religious devotion to the idea of say what I believe, channel my opinion, be able to back it up when people say why, be able to have a good answer. That is my path. I walk it with confidence, and that, no matter how loud it gets, no matter what is said by whom, I know that I can close my eyes and walk this path because I know it as well as I know it. And I can keep repeating that to myself while people who have been listeners forever are like, hey, are you trying to fuck with me? Are you fucking with me right now?
I've literally agreed with every single thing you've spoken, but recently I heard an uptick, perhaps a question mark at an end of a sentence that leads me to believe that all of this has been a lie.
It's
close to home. This is getting too close to home.
No, and because I thought Trump won the debate. And so I said, hey, look, rhetorically, this is why I had everybody watch these old debates. Like, and people who think George W. Bush is a war criminal, watch that 2000 debate where Al Gore was sighing and
Oh
talking
yeah,
about a
no, he looked
lockbox.
like a baby. Yeah.
And it was like, I'm like, look, and people, I'm like, all right, who do you guys think won? They're like, oh wow, I mean, I haven't seen it since 2000, but rewatching it, yeah, George W. Bush kicked his ass. He seemed a lot more relatable, and uh, uh, Al Gore seemed blah blah blah. And so I'm like, good. I need you all to remember this as we get into these modern debates, because when we get into modern debates, we're not going to be able to separate who we want to win with who's doing it. And so, like, I got a ton of shit, and then I got another counter rash of shit as and then people are emailing me being like, I've persistently kind of had angry conservative listeners because a lot of the guests that we have on PX3 are academics, and spoiler alert, academics
And a
tend to be
real little
liberal.
bit blue. Yeah.
So it's like, and I know that that's an issue, but also it's like, hey, you book fucking 2 guests a week. All right. Like, for everybody who, wants me to have exactly their perfect person on, you try booking them and chasing them around and getting 2 people a week. That being said, it's loud. I suspect it will be less loud as we walk closer. And push comes to shove, really, like the only kind of bet that I've made is that it's going to be closer than everybody thinks. And that incumbents are hard to beat. So don't be surprised if Trump wins. Like, that's pretty much my only thing. And if Biden wins in a fucking massive, everybody's embarrassed blowout, then I'll be like, well, shucks, look at that. It's crazy. Like,
Better
this
luck
is a thing
next
that
cycle.
normally,
Thanks for the
yeah.
bucks, fuckos.
Well, I mean, it's like, and really my only thing there is, hey, look, this stuff happens once every 4 years, which is just enough time for us to always forget all the lessons that we learned in the previous 4 years, and definitely forget all the lessons we learned in the 8 years before then. So I'm like, all I know is this: hard for incumbents to lose. We're very polarized, and that means that it's going to be all the people that we think are not going to come home will probably come home, and it's going to be close because it was close last time. It'll be even closer this time. Uh, so that's like my only thing. And if it's a blowout, then I'll be like, well, look at that. Add another, what a historic rainfall here in my farmer's almanac. It doesn't normally rain, but more than a puddle. So and that'll be fine. And I'm fine any way that cookie crumbles, but I would like it for people to stop hating me and reading the worst possible intentions into anything that may or may not be divergent from their particular orthodoxy.
Man, that's that's been sort of a chronic condition of life in a post-internet age is when you're forced to have discourse person to person, it's more scary to respond to someone as if you believe whatever they just said was literally a personal attack to you right there in the Walgreens. And so we tended not to do that. In an internet age, it's unfortunate that a side effect of the nature of communication highly rewards you to react as though you've been personally attacked on every single thing. And especially when you don't have to look anyone in the face. And we've talked about this before. There's that video, A Real Person, A Lot Like You, from Derek Sivers, the guy who created CD Baby, where he, reminds people that, you're not just typing words onto a screen for your own therapy. A human being has to experience the brunt of that counterattack that almost certainly is not merited.
I can understand it now, and I'm glad that I get it now. I also understand it's a little bit of a be careful what you wish for, though, because if I look at the Twitter people that have podcasts that are 6-7 times bigger than me, then that's just an element of life. So it's like part of that lesson also for me is like, oh shit. So if and as this gets bigger, there's just going to be less people that have been with me forever that know more of who I am. They're going to hear one thing that may or may not even be in context, that'll get aggregated from, one place to another. And I'll make my first impression to them as some kind of parody of a belief they don't like. And that'll be the initial thing, and that'll be what my life is. At which point I'll probably have to fundamentally just deal with Twitter differently.
I'll tell you what, I mean, and I think just over the last few years, you've watched me change my Twitter habits, and Twitter used to be a conversation. And once I understood Twitter is what happens when you want a chat room, but you only have press releases, all of a sudden it's like, there's just not enough money in being as interesting as I would like, or trying to have the kind of discourse that I would like to have.
Well, and really it's like, I think the idea of Twitter being an accurate reflection of what people think is a tricky lesson to learn as you get bigger. Because it's like, on one hand, yes, it is a raw feed. Like, it is you turning the microphone on in, the bleachers somewhere where people are having an honest conversation about, or they want you to hear their opinion. Does that mean that everybody else there thinks the same way? No. But also, like, does that affect the gears? Does that affect the machine? Like, yeah, it does. I mean, anybody who tells you that it doesn't is lying. Like, nobody, we've joked around before that, like, when we did that bit on Night Attack about where I said, like, hey, everybody should call me an embarrassment for 7 days. And it's like on day 1, I was like, oh, it's the show bit. And on day 4, the first time when I opened up my Twitter and all my @ replies were, you're such an embarrassment. And I'm thinking immediately, like, oh shit, what was the last thing I tweeted? And then, like, that's, again, if we talk about the loose cable being a cycle in your brain that you can't get back, like, the idea that maybe everybody who ever liked me now hates me is a cycle of your brain that you can't get back. So it's been challenging. I will say that this is the first time that I felt the drag of the political discourse.
Tell me if this resonates with you, is because part of how my Twitter use has changed is just realizing that there's a resentment I have that I know the recipe for a highly engaged, passionate Twitter response is to pick a fucking stupid team between the dumb team and the other dumb team, and then make sure to just do the cheapest, least thoughtful, fastest gotcha zinger that will A, accomplish nothing, B, signal to your tribe that you're on whatever dumb team or whatever. And, and I don't want to do that. And so instead I try to either say things that I think are funny that I came up with, that are talk honestly about things I'm feeling, or post pictures of puppies. And puppies is winning by a lot. And so, and all of that is a pale nothing compared to fucking every fourth-rate budget talking head on some fucking network with the cheapest of dumb, poorly researched cheap shots, and, fucking 10,000 retweets on whatever that shit is. And it's like, I don't know. It's so agonizing because it's like, it's right there. It's right there. I've got the reach. I've got the ability. The algorithm will reward me the moment I want to show up with dumb, bad, cheap takes. And I don't want to do it. And I would imagine that a similar temptation is laying there right for you. Hey, buddy, if you just pick a side, a lot of things could change for you. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, I would say that the thing that, because my brand is politics and I have to live here, like, it's slightly different calculus than it would be for you, where you're like, oh, and I don't mean this one-to-one in terms of your fame to this person, but it's like, if Bob Vila came out and is like,
right, first of all,
I'm building for Biden, right? Like, Bob Vila would still be known as the builder guy, right? And it's like, he could say some things during the election season, and then 3 years and change going forward, he could just be like, and that's what a winch is. And nobody would be like, fuck you, liberal. Like, like, at the end of the day, they'd still want to know how to stay in their deck. for you could say like, hey, I just got to say, modern roguers, that this is important and you need to go vote for Biden or you need to go vote for Trump or whatever. And you would be rewarded and excoriated appropriately. And then the next week, after the election, you could be like, Jason's gonna eat a scorpion. Like, I wonder what's gonna happen. Like, and at the end of the day, people are gonna want to see that already like you. If I come out and say, oh, fucking, like, I know I don't talk about my own personal opinions a lot, but just so you know, Biden is the best. Like, everything that I've criticized Biden, I've had to do it swallowing my tongue because I think he's just a beautiful man and I just want to touch his face and he's the best.
We got it, boys, right? We got a clean cut of that. We could just cut that out and
like I can't come back from that. Like I will have sacrificed my brand much in the same way that if you came out and said like, hey, we fake everything on the modern rogue.
Right.
Like none of it's real. Like, we don't care. We've told you that it's real. It's not. It's all faked. Anyway, like it would change everything going forward.
Yeah. And even then, when I do meander in political waters, it tends to be always in the abstract, just pro third party, anti-duopoly, which is not the nuttiest thing.
No, it's about as safe as a radical opinion can get, right? It's like, hey, we all agree in democracy, right? Yay. Like your whole thing, which is brilliant.
Right.
You're like question tree of like, hey, I can prove to you in 5 steps that you're all actually in favor of third party voting. Like, observe.
Yeah. Or either that or hypocrites. I'm inclined to think the latter.
Sure, exactly.
When I was at the gumbo place, there was, they got all the televisions on with the sound turned off, and there was some Comedy Central thing, and I couldn't understand why all these people were looking in the camera and shouting, no, 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 no. And they all had this intense, angry, bullying no look. And then the last one was Trevor Noah, and then the word vote showed up. And I realized, oh, that was everybody who appears on The Daily Show telling you to vote. And then I immediately thought, they're not really telling you to vote. They're telling you to vote for a certain candidate. And I was just like, I wonder how many of them would be excited about the fact that I voted for somebody who wasn't on their menu.
I mean, that's, somebody sent me a thing that the guy who does the Expensify platform blasted his mailing list, and was like, hey, vote for Biden. Everybody vote for Biden. Here's my reasons why I believe that you should vote for Biden. Here's why I think that you need to vote for Biden. Vote for Joe Biden. And he got some shit for it. But I was like, good. Thank God he just said what he meant instead of like, especially like, I don't know, Comedy Central or certain outlets. It's like, again, if CMT comes out and during the CMT awards, or they're like, hey, y'all, voting's the most important thing that you can do. Just make sure you go out and vote, okay?
Fuck you!
Like,
fuck you, you fascist, racist pig! Fuck you!
Well, no. Like, my point is, they're mobilizing for Trump. If the NBA comes out,
that's exactly what the response would be.
And in the same way that the NBA puts vote on their courts, and people are like, sure, Chinese apologists, Biden lovers, blah blah blah, right? So I don't know. We have weird orthodoxies in terms of how we're allowed to talk about this kind of stuff, which is particularly hypocritical in our modern age, where we've never felt more compelled to talk about our personal opinions. Now it's like, oh, like, I don't know. Have you seen
it's like expected, where it's like, well, for example, Coinbase, that Bitcoin company, like the CEO had the nutty idea of like, hey, seems like a lot of you guys really want us to plaster Black Lives Matter stuff on our corporate stuff. Obviously, I totally respect everybody having whatever political opinion. That's why we're all in cryptocurrency, is so that everybody can be empowered. Yeah. We're obviously allies in this. However, part of being not beholden to any interests means that we have to divorce ourselves from it. Having said that, I know that many of you people want to work at a pro-social place. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll give you 6 months of severance. But I'm going to make the rule of let's keep this not apolitical here. We're just here to empower whoever. And so a few engineers took them up on it or whatever. And then meanwhile, people are like, "Fuck you, Coinbase. You didn't automatically like or dislike this side or the other side." And I don't know. It's a real bummer because what I've read about it, and keep in mind, if anybody has a differing opinion, understand that almost certainly I am less informed than whoever else out there. But what looked to me like a fairly kind, patient, and what do you call it when you do the middle of the road? I keep wanting to say mediated or meditated. That's not the right word. Whatever that word is. It seemed like somebody was taking a cautious, responsible step. Did not land that way. Not reasoned. Oh, it starts with an M. Nah, maybe moderate. Maybe that's what I meant. But anyway, a fairly moderate response, I thought.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Have you followed what happened with like Chris Pratt?
Oh yeah, I heard he's getting hashtag canceled for some reason.
For not doing a Biden event.
Ugh.
I guess all the other Avengers and Marvel actors did a big Biden fundraiser, and he didn't do a Biden fundraiser. Has never said vote for Trump. Has never said vote for anybody. But he didn't do the fundraiser, and that's a problem. And it's like, I guess Robert Downey Jr. didn't do it either, and he also put up a thing on his Instagram.
Well, it seems like you're allowed to agree. Okay, so here's the way I see it on Twitter is you're allowed to agree with me. You're allowed to disagree with me if you spend a whole bunch of time explaining to me why you disagree with me. You're not allowed to disagree with me and not explain to me why. And that part weirds me out.
Yeah. Matt J. Watt says, I think it's also because Pratt's church is anti-LGBT. Not even that. He's a member of a church that was an offshoot of a church that has reported anti-LGBT views. So it's not even like he's a part of the problematic church, for which I got a few words for you, but many churches have very problematic elements, at least on that standard.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
but it's something that I just have I've got my religious path of say what I mean what I say, close my eyes and walk forward. And even as my own mother yells at me on text message to stop telling people to write her in for president, I walk the path I believe. I walk the path I believe. I am surrounded by holy fire.
Oh no! I'd hate to believe that your mom doesn't dig being written in on ballots across the country.
Spoiler alert: she doesn't. She very much wants Joe Biden to win and feels that any single vote that I'm like, Mom. Like, no one who really cares. Like, no one's like, Joe Biden or the meme. Like,
God, that's going to be a
people
great...
that probably wouldn't vote, and they're doing it to like show support for the show. And she's like, I don't like it. But she'll be on this week, so you'll hear that play out on that.
That's going to be a great movie when your mom wakes up. I woke up the president. A Gloria Young story.
I'm the president. Oh, Justin, what the fuck did you do?
All right, look, we love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, more happy. I don't know. There's a lot of happy in here. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Happy hour. Happy hour. Natty Tax Happy Hour.